All right, we got it. All right, you all got that then.
Yeah.
Let's do a blessing, shall we? About setting together. Here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu v'mitzvotav lasok l'divrei Torah. All right.
Yeah, Rabbi,
Yes.
it's chapter 33, line 5 of Devarim.
In Devarim, thank you. Yeah, it's mentioned. Yeshua is mentioned a couple places. Is that in the blessing of Moses?
Yeah. Before he gets into the specific tribe.
Yeah. May you wax fat or something like Yeshua, I think, or something in there. But yes, thank you, George, for finding the source of it. All right, we're going to talk about Sukkot. Should we talk about Sukkot?
Okay.
Starting. We're going to look over some resource material that some of you might have seen before about lulav and etrog and what it means, but I want to, as always, go a little bit beyond the usual and try and figure out the significance of it. I think that some of you, in terms of looking at diversity of Jewish people and lots of different, ideas, more we'll find symbolism and meaning in that as well. So let's share my screen and we can start. Here we go. Okay. All right. This will be from the first. I mentioned one of them in the Torah itself, in terms of Leviticus. And Kathleen, you want to read? Want to start?
Sure. On the first day, you shall take the product of Hadar trees, branches of palm trees, boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days.
All right. So this is the command about lulav and etrog, is understood by the rabbis. Anything strike you? Anything that strikes you, or any questions that come out of this?
What is?
Go ahead, Eileen.
What is the word hadar?
That's the question.
Yeah.
Right. So they didn't translate it, did they?
Well, then
the Hebrew, just so you know, Eileen, the Hebrew is hadar, right up here. And so they didn't, and I love when places do that. By the way, you can always tell a good if you want to know something about translations, I think that's a great question. When they don't translate the Hebrew and they keep it in, it means that it's unknown, and they want to be authentic to a translation. So what does hadar? Anybody know any Hebrew in general? What hadar might mean, George?
Yeah, beautiful, but I'm looking at an art scroll here, and they, interpret it as the fruit of the citron tree.
Of course they do, because by the way, it should be very clear where it's from. And by the way, for Art Scroll and Orthodox compilation, they're going to insert, if you will, their halachic, their legal understanding.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, George, as you know, I think that it's not clear that it is an etrog tree. In fact, there's other suggestions about what it might be. But what does hadar mean itself? George said it means beautiful.
Yeah.
Some of you might hear the phrase hidor mitzvah. Have you ever heard that expression?
Oh yeah, beautify the mitzvah.
Right, hidor mitzvah. If you're going to do a mitzvah, do it in a beautiful way. Yeah. Which is why, Steve, we have such great Jewish ritual art. If you think about Kiddush cups, if you think about Torah mantles, right? Really, Steve, like works of art. Because if you're going to do a mitzvah, and by the way, here's the caveat: if you can afford it, then you should make it as beautiful as possible. Yeah. And that's why Judaic art has always been part of that. In fact, this comes up in terms of picking of a lulav and etrog. So, George, how does it come into Carol? Go ahead. Carol, hold on 1 second. Carol had her hand up. Carol, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, those are the 4 things that make up the lulav, but that was not my question.
Yes.
If it's the first day of the holiday, you're not supposed to do work.
And
so why are they gathering these things on the first day instead of the day before and having it already on the first day? Or is that being too picky?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
You're not supposed to do work on the first day of Chag, right?
Right?
So it says on the first day you shall gather.
Oh,
these things. I would have thought it would have said in preparation
it's
before
a
the
great,
first day.
right. This is, you shall use them.
The
Yes.
lakachtem is you shall take.
Right, right,
Yeah, no, but
No.
right.
you're correct that that's the language. So I want to share, when it says lakach, in the rabbinic language, what they mean is that you're literally taking it for the mitzvah.
Mhm.
Right, like,
Right,
you're,
I'm just-
yeah, rather than just go out and take it. Yeah, so thank you for that clarification. That's really, really important. So thank you. But I wanted to point out that we don't have an exact translation of what, Eileen, what the tree is. They say that it is the citron, and so that becomes the tradition. All right,
Right, so,
George, you have a comment?
yeah, there's this movie, Uspizin or whatever it was, where this guy who didn't have money bought some outrageously priced citron, to honor the holiday,
Yeah, by the way, most towns, in fact, I don't have it, we've changed my office around, but when you see an etrog holder,
Mhm.
it's very common to have beautiful etrog holders. Some made out of silver plates, some made out of other things. And it's because first of all, you had to be very careful about not breaking the tip on it, the pitam. But sometimes, George, a whole town might, raise money for one etrog. Because they were expensive. They were not the usual easy commodity. And so today you can range, by the way, everything else besides the etrog, the lulav, the hadass, the arava, willow, and myrtle, they're all like what we'd call giveaways in terms of buying the etrog, and they don't cost anything. It's like they're minimal. The real cost is the etrog. And etrog itself can run anywhere from $30 to $100 plus, just for an etrog. Yeah, Beverly, I see that face. It's because the more beautiful. So there are people. Have you ever seen people shop for an etrog or no?
Yeah.
Yeah, George, you have. Stan, what they do is they take it and they look at it. And is it just big enough? It can be big enough, but not too big. It can't be too small. It's got to have just the right way. It can't beautiful. And they will and they'll be in boxes, by the way, in separate areas. This is right, George? Here's the premium stuff.
Even
Here's
in
the
our
okay
temple,
stuff.
they do it. There's a whole bunch of boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What looks better, this one or that one?
Right. So, but any of them are, but that's where Hidur Mitzvah comes from.
Yeah.
All right. Let's, anybody else have a question before you go on? We've got a number of sources, so let me go on here. Kathleen, that was a very short one. I'll give you one more to do. All right.
Okay.
So this is from the Vayikra Rabbah. All right. And I don't know, the 5th, 7th century, around there. So go ahead.
Another explanation, the fruit of a beautiful tree. These are referring to Israel, just like the citron or etrog.
Okay, so hold on. So I want you to pause there. So the premise of this midrash is that these refer to Israel, to the people. All right. Now they're going to give you each 4, Kathleen, we're going to divide them up, are going to give you verses about why it relates to the Jewish people. Go ahead.
Just like the citron, etrog, which has taste and has smell, so too Israel has among them people that have Torah and have good deeds.
All right, so hold on. So the first, many of you know this one, right? That each one represents a different population, if you will, a different group of people. And so the etrog, Kathleen, has taste and smell. And so it represents Jewish people who have knowledge, Torah knowledge, and have good deeds. All right, continue.
The branches of a date palm, these are referring to Israel, just like this date, which has taste and has no smell. So too Israel has among them those who have Torah, but do not have good deeds.
All right, so Kathleen, does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, this one has taste but no smell, and so it represents good deeds. They have Torah but not good deeds. Go ahead, the third one.
And a branch of a braided tree, a myrtle, these are referring to Israel, just like this myrtle, which has smell and no taste. So too Israel has among them those who have good deeds, but do not have Torah. Wow. And brook willows, These are referring to Israel. Just like this willow, which has no smell and has no taste, so too Israel has among them people that have no Torah and have no good deeds.
All right, so hold on. So isn't that beautiful, Kathleen? It represents all kinds of Jews. Those who have knowledge, those who don't, those who have good deeds, those who don't. We'll finish it. Let's finish it, and then we'll go. I'll take it down, and then we can talk about it. So keep going.
And what does the Holy One, blessed be he, do to them? To destroy them is impossible, but rather the Holy One, blessed be he, said, bind them all together into one grouping, and these will atone for those. And if you have done that, I will be elevated at that time. This is the meaning of what is written. He who built the upper chambers in the heavens, indicating his elevation. And when he is elevated, when they make one grouping, as it is stated, and established his grouping on the earth. Hence Moshe warned Israel, and you shall take for yourselves on the first day.
Right. So there's where take becomes a great word, Carol, right? Just as we take mitzvot, God takes us. So it's an interesting that word lakach. So there are different kinds of Jews. How many of you have heard this midrash before? Or know this idea about represents different types of Jews? Not everybody.
Vaguely, yes.
All right. So what's so profound? I mean, the midrash says what? Right? That each one can atone for the sins of the other one. But what's the significance of this? Yeah, Carol.
None is better than the other. They're all equal.
Doesn't say anybody's better. Good. What else do you find in here? Yes, Kathleen.
Love every Jew. Love everyone. We're all one. We all make the whole.
Isn't that true? Anybody have any other thoughts about this? Rob.
Do the rabbis or anybody else draw a relationship here between this and the 4 sons from Passover?
That's good.
I don't think so. Because then the who would be wicked? Would that be the one who that neither of them?
Neither of them. No Torah, no good deeds.
Yeah. No, it would be interesting to think about how you might break that down, Rob. So I want you to think about that. Write me a 200-page paper, and then you'll submit it.
Yeah, but that would make one better than the other, and that's exactly the opposite.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So they try not to here, even though it'd be easy, Carol, to say, like, if you have no Torah, no nothing. But it's interesting that each can atone for the sins of the other, and we're only whole when we're all together. So I like those ideas. Anita?
A congregation that supports good deeds, that supports Torah learning, even if not everybody participates in the whole thing, but the community therefore becomes holy because the community is supported by everybody.
Yes.
So I take the whole lulav etrog combination as being the community. And even if you're not Torah learned or performing good deeds, you're supporting the community.
Yeah, I love that there's no, as we've been talking about, Anita, I think you just really hit on it as well, is there's no moral judgment. We have all kinds of people, and we need them all. And by the way, so that's why, according to why you bind them together. I mean, I often think, wouldn't it be nice if some of those groups, I won't mention which ones, who say that, well, not everyone's really a Jew, or we don't like the way those Jews do things, could recognize and say this midrash, Kathleen, wouldn't that be remarkable? And to say, this is what it means. We are all one, whether you agree or not, we're still one people. So I just find this one of the most beautiful and meaning of the explanations given. We go Steve, Carol, and Stan.
It seems to me that the neutral is a neutral zone where you don't study Torah and you don't do good deeds, but that doesn't mean you're an evildoer. So that's not mentioned.
It doesn't, right? Unlike where Rob was saying, well, does it correspond to the 4 sons and there's an evil category? This doesn't talk about that at all. You're right. It gives its acknowledgement. You know, if anything, right, Steve, we should say, and we don't use this one, we don't hold it together because they're not part of it, right? Like the evil child, Robert, you said, like, you wouldn't have been redeemed, you know, had you been in Egypt. So, Steve, I like that very much. Carol.
To your knowledge, do the Orthodox and especially the Haredis discuss this midrash tomorrow night? I mean, like,
I'm sure they do, but I'm sure it applies to people in their community. You know,
so it's only within.
I don't know for sure, but there's certainly here. There's no judgment about people, Jews that don't do it their way. Yeah, wouldn't it be great to really elevate that? Stan, you had a thought? Oh, and then Beverly.
First of all, many of you know that writing poetry is one of my hobbies, and I've written 2 poems for Sukkot, which I'm going to send to the group. One is about the 4 species, the other is about Shavaru Pisin, the guests at the Sukkah. But also what I wanted to mention, are you going to talk about the correlation of the parts of the body as well for the?
That's the next midrash. That's the next one, Stan.
Okay.
All right, so we'll get there. Thank you. Beverly.
This is so interesting because many years ago when we were in Israel, in Jerusalem, at the wall, they were, I believe this was during the time of Purim. They had many stalls representing different community works. And one lady approached me and said, would you like to do this dance? And I said, well, I don't know the dance. But she had the etrog and
Etrog?
Yeah, etrog. And the other things all in one, wrapped in one thing. And she says, come on, I'll lead you. And she led me in this dance. It was very, I didn't understand the full meaning of it, but it was very emotional. Let me put it that way. And now I understand, you know, I wanted to contribute something. She says, no, not necessary. We're halacha. I believe that's the term she used. They support like unwed mothers and charities like that. And now I'm getting to understand the coming together of all those different plants that you're describing.
So this is one explanation. Like at the very end, I will share with you where I think what the real origins are of this. But this, Beverly, this is the case. Thank you for sharing, first of all. That was a beautiful story. And much like Chabad that goes out, you know, in the street corners and puts on tefillin, the idea is they want you to be able to do a mitzvah. And so during Sukkot, this is a mitzvah that you can have people participate in and to actually do it. When you say a dance, you mean just waving it around you, or did they really have you like doing a dance?
No, we were holding each other and she would lead me in a kind of a circular dance, just the 2 of us.
Interesting. That is fascinating because normally you shake it in all directions. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. One of the midrashim that we have.
Well,
But
she might have done that, but I'll tell you, I had tears in my eyes, so I didn't notice so much going on.
no, I can hear as you're sharing. I could hear the emotion in your voice about it. But again, so what's happening here, Beverly, is we have this command in the Torah, and we don't know what the origins are of it. We don't know the meaning of the Torah. Doesn't give us most of the time what the meaning and significance is, and it's left to the rabbis to figure out or to offer their own meaning. And so in different generations, Beverly, they find explanations that are meaningful to that generation. So that's what's happening. They're trying to figure this out. Nowhere do we know that to be correct. By the way, I just this morning, someone asked me at Minyan, and I'd forgotten about when the Torah goes out, how many of you are familiar with like taking a pinky and placing it, right, and taking it up by kissing? Yeah. So I remember reading it something about idolatry or not, and then I looked up again the source, and it shows up in like the 15th century or something as a custom with no explanation, like no explanation at all about why would even think about doing that. So Beverly, later on, people will give meanings to it because, by the way, religion, it abhors a vacuum of meaning, and so we create meaning in it. All right, let's go on. Because the next one I think is going to end. You're going to continue. Let's Let's, Lauren, are you up for reading, Lauren? Nope. Okay. Okay, no problem. You're muted and everything, but I'm gonna take that as a no. Carol, you're unmuted. Why don't you go ahead?
And there is also another matter with these four things, that they are similar to precious limbs in a man.
All right, so this is what, right, we're, by the Sefer HaChinuch, it's attributed in the 13th century to a rabbi. They think it might be someone else. Those of you who've studied with me for a long time know I love Sefer HaChinuch. It's ordered according to the order of the mitzvot that Maimonides came up with of 613 commandments. And if you don't know, there are different rabbis who have different numbering of those 613. They didn't agree on all 613 what they were. And so this is just, he takes a number of the sources and often will bring them together. Carol, go ahead.
As the citron is similar to the heart, which is the dwelling place of the intellect, to hint that he should serve his creator with his intellect. The lulav is similar to the backbone, which is the essence of a person, to hint that he should straighten himself completely for his service. Blessed be she. The myrtle leaves are similar to the eyes, to hint that he should not stray after his eyes on the day of the rejoicing of his heart. And the willow leaves are similar to the lips, with which a man or woman completes all of their acts of speech, to hint that they should put a muzzle to their mouth, calibrate their words, and fear God. May he or she be blessed, even at time of joy. And the reason that it is only practiced one day in the country outside of the temple is well known, since the main joy is on the first day. And if you should ask, why would one not take it on Shmini Atzeres?
So you know what? So hold on. Let's hold on. I'm actually going to stop there. Let's stop there for a moment because I forgot that there's sort of like two different themes in that one. All right. So this is the one that Stan was talking about, that it represents different parts of the body. Beverly, very different than the other one about being different segments of the Jewish population. So what is this midrash, this understanding of the lulav and etrog trying to teach us then? I always want you to think, when you study these sources, like, what are they really trying to teach? What is behind it?
Can you put it back up?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that basically, by the way, it is interesting, Carol, that the etrog represents the heart. Kind of does look like a heart. But by the way, it's not about emotion, it's intellect. If you don't know this, that the earliest understandings of heart are not that it's the seat of emotion, but it's the seat of intellect. Right? So it's intellect. The lulav is the spine. They call it the backbone. The myrtle is the mouth. I'm sorry, the eyes, and willow is the mouth. So heart, spine, eyes, and mouth. Okay, go ahead, Anita.
Well, the similarity is that these are parts of a whole, just as the other midrash was different peoples of a whole community. This is parts of the body making the whole body, none of which could exist without the whole.
Oh, okay, good. That's a basic. I love that structure. What are all these parts of the body supposed to be dedicated towards, though?
To worship, to God, by the way, and Anita, and that's right. How do you worship God? Right? First of all, you know God through that intellect. Okay, Carol, that's like Maimonidean in its essence. And then you have to stand up straight and be right with a sense of conviction. And then Anita gets very specific about lips and eyes. You have to be careful about being attracted to things that you shouldn't, and about good speech. So in this way, the four species, which is what they called arba minim, the four types of species, are dedicated towards service towards God. That's what they come to represent. Mort.
So which came first, the cart or the horse? And was the symbols created and then they looked for some interpretation for these symbols in celebration, or was there an idea that there should be symbols to celebrate? So which came first, Rabbi?
So here's what I'll tell you. In this one, usually I would say I have no idea, but here's what I'll tell you. I actually believe in this case, that the original, and I'll share with you what I think was the original understanding, which I hardly ever say. And when it ceased to have relevance more to the future generations, the rabbis had to come up with different explanations. So I believe here, and so we're going to go back. We're going to figure all that out together. But thank you for actually set the course of of where we're going today. So that's perfect. Let's okay, Carol first, and then Stan. There's a lot of sources, but go ahead.
I don't like the second one. I like the first one much better.
I know.
If I get a vote, because it's really, we're not an individual religion. This isn't about one person. It's about the community.
Yeah, look, if we were going to have a vote, which one speaks to us more and we like, I think the first one gets our vote. Again, this one, Carol, is trying to figure out, what does it mean? Like, Mort's question, why are we waiving these things? And for this answer, it's all about directing ourselves towards God. And I agree with you. I think if you took a vote here, I think most people would probably vote for the first one as being much better. Stan.
Well, I think most of these stories that we try to correlate to something else, or like the Es Chaim, the tree of life, and Kabbalism, they have all the correlations between one thing and another. It's a natural to try, I think a human nature to try to say this is what it represents.
Yeah, we are trying to search for meaning. And often the original meaning is unknown, and that's the beauty of Judaism, is continually to find, Stan, as you know, new meaning in it. Judy, why don't you continue actually in the middle here? And the first part is, and at the bottom of that page, and the reason is that it's only practiced one day in the country, and we're gonna get to this source in a moment. I don't want to focus on this, is well known, since the main joy is on the first day. All right, now they're going to come into another question, Judy, about Shmini Atzeret, which was the 8th day celebration of Sukkot. All right, that's going to be, by the way, Sukkot begins on Monday. Shabbat, Saturday. 8 days later, the following Shabbat is Shmini Atzeret. And the Torah gives no meaning of what Shmini Atzeret is. It doesn't tell us Shmini Atzeret at all. So read here. Judy, are you up for reading? No, okay, then you don't have to read then. Let me go. Eileen, you're going to read then.
Where should I start?
You're going to start. Why? And if you ask, at the top of the second page.
And if you should ask, why would one not take it on Shmini Atzeret, which has great joy on it for Israel? The answer is that the day of Shmini Atzeret is completely for God. May he be blessed. And it is as they may, their memory be blessed, said this other day.
Yeah, so don't coordinate. Now comes a famous midrashic story that some of you, may have studied with. Most rabbis like to quote this one, a parable.
A parable of a king who made a feast and so on, as it is said, as is found in the midrash. And at the end, he said to them, remain with me one day, as your departure is difficult for me. And therefore it is called Atzeret.
Okay, so let's stop. Right. So let's stop for a moment there, because the next part is going to get more confusing. In fact,
But it says stopping. Is that what the word means?
Yes.
Yeah, Atzeret literally means to stop. In modern Hebrew, even, Eileen, Atzor, if you're in Israel and you see a sign, Carol, it says Atzor, you better.
Yeah.
It's a stop sign.
You better stop. Exactly. So it really is a stop, or, by the way, Eileen, conclusion. It is the concluding festival day of Sukkot. It is seen as a holiday unto itself, and the image of the king, the full story. How many of you have heard that the midrash of the king and the and throwing a feast? How many of you have? Right, not everybody. So here's what happens. It says it's like a king who throws a feast, and they're eating and drinking, and everybody comes, and the whole kingdom is there and celebrating. At the end of the celebration, the king says, we're having such a great time. Let's just stay for one more day together. And so of course, in all these parables, by the way, the king is always God. So Beverly, God is called the 7-day celebration, Sukkot. But everyone's having such a good time. God's having such a good time with us. God says, just stay with me one more day. So it's seen as a separate holiday, which is why we don't take lulav and etrog. If you don't know this, there's a custom to eat in the sukkah, but you don't do the blessings of the sukkah of Leisheh by Sukkot, because it's not really part of Sukkot, but there's sort of an extension of holding on. And by the way, I think, well, what would you take as being the beautiful significance of this idea of Shmini Atzeret? I think there's great beauty in the meaning. What would you like? What can you learn from it in life?
This is your parent.
Kathleen, give it a shot.
That God wants us to cling to him, and as we cling to him and serve him, he clings back. He holds on to us and doesn't want to let us go.
All right, very, very nice. I love that meaning in terms of relationship to God. God wants to be with us and wants us to be with God. Good. What else, maybe? Yeah, Beverly?
Just taking a stab at this, but it sounds like it calls for more of a day of reflection after all of the, celebration and that went on, the food orgy.
Good. I like that. So just let's just think about what it means to be together and hold on to that. Good, George?
Yeah, of course, we have a 2-day holiday here, but in Israel it's one. The ending and the beginning of the Torah. We have another day, for that.
Yeah. We add Simchat Torah in it, but the question is, George, if you're just going to take Shmini Atzeret itself and this midrash about just stay another day, right? What would be the idea that you would hold on to in terms of learning from it, a beautiful lesson about life? Anita?
Well, I relate it to the fact that my grandparents lived in New York and I lived in Texas, and we would go once a year in the summer to visit them. And Bubby always wanted to hold us one more day.
Oh, I love that. I do all the time with people when they suffer loss who said, look, I just would love one more day with that person. Just one more day. And I think about, for me, that what I hear in this parable, in this midrash, is that appreciate the time you do have together. Appreciate the time you have, because it was just like one more day. Just God wants us to stick around one more day. And do we really appreciate the time that we have with people, or do we take it for granted? So that's one message, Beverly, I take from this.
He froze.
Hold on, I'm back now. There we go. Rob.
Yeah, I think, isn't it traditional that we read from Ecclesiastes on Sukkot? And the end of Ecclesiastes, he says, for all of the tsuras that we go through in life, that what we have is enjoyment. It's a cling to our enjoyment of life, and to have, as you said, have gratitude for the good things.
Good, Rob. So it fits in with other explanations given for the sukkah itself, right? That it's tentative and it's ephemeral, and we need to be able to appreciate the nature, the sort of that ephemeral nature of life. Absolutely. It fits in with a lot of those themes. So yes, thank you. Judy.
Well, Rob said what I was going to say, that not just to appreciate the time you have together, but especially when it's really good and everything, to stretch it out and make the most of it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for adding that. Stan, was there something you wanted to add or no? Oh, no, Rob. Rob, you did. Let's Stan.
No, I'm just giving thumbs up to
yeah,
it.
okay. Stan, did you want to add something or no? We're good. We can go on. We're good? Okay. The other thing I take from this, I often think about, is we have no idea what the reason is for celebrating. By the way, Mort, if you want to talk about trying to find a reason, right, and make up a reason, like not a clue what Shmini Atzeret is. And so the rabbi said, they come up, by the way, this is where I get to where you've heard me say, some of you, like when in the Jewish tradition, when you don't know an answer, just share a story. And if people say, like, I don't understand, just go, like, think about the story. You'll get it. So Mort, they give the story about the king because it's the only thing they can connect to about staying. There's no other significance. But I will tell you that there is a connection, because anybody know? Oh, this will be Jewish holidays for 500. George's head got up there. There we go. All right, here we go. What Jewish holiday is actually known by the name Atzeret? Besides Shmini Atzeret, there's one Jewish holiday that it's known as, it's actually called in rabbinic tradition Atzeret. I like when I get stumped too often. There you go. So it's Shavuot. George, Shavuot is called Atzeret. Why is it called Atzeret? Because it's the conclusion of the 7 weeks of the Omer from Passover to Shavuot. It's the conclusion of it. Now, I want you to hold on, George, for a second. Apply that now to Sukkot, not 7 weeks, but 7 days.
Yeah.
And the conclusion of that 7 period is Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day of conclusion. Isn't that interesting kind of parallel? And that's really the origins of it. George, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking at the sacrifices, and on Yom Kippur, essentially Rosh Hashanah and Shemini Atzeret, what is it, 1 bull or whatever, and 7 lamb. It's the same, where the other ones have larger numbers of animals.
All right, so
any thing there, but
so George, the rabbis use that one. So if you don't know, and by the way, this is why the connection between
allegedly they say that the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's a reflection, it's an individual more, instead of this whole group, you're reflecting here. So I don't know if there's any connection with, because we said it's all together, so I don't know.
All right, let's go on. Thank you. No, that was a great continuation. But Carol, did you have something?
Well, I just want to clarify what you said before. So there's no Shmini Atzeret in the Torah?
They do. It's called Shmini Chag HaTzeret. In fact, in the Amidah, when you add the words, it is Shmini Chag HaTzeret. It is called an 8th day festival. That's what it's called. I think it's mentioned once.
Okay.
And in fact, I don't think it's mentioned in the Torah readings that we have at that time. I have to find out or not, but I don't know if it's mentioned. All right, let's go on. Oh, wait, Stan, if you don't mind, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go on because I want to make sure we get all of these sources. I think there's a separate one. Yes, so this one, all right. Who hasn't read? All right, Steve, you just volunteered? Thank you.
Yes, I volunteered. Another explanation, the fruit of a beautiful tree, Etz Hadar. This is referring to the Holy One, blessed be he, as it is written about him. You were dressed in splendor and beauty, Hadar, the branches of a date palm. This is referring to the Holy One, blessed be he, as it is written about him in Psalms. The righteous one flourishes like a date palm.
All right, so what they're doing here, Steve, is all of these are going to be representing God. So it's all different manifestations of God. We're bringing them together. So now if you understand that, keep reading that.
And a branch of a braided tree, myrtle. This is referring to the Holy One, blessed be he, as it is written in Zechariah. And he is standing among the myrtles. And brook willows, Arve Nachal. This is referring to the Holy One, blessed be he, as it is written about him. Praise the one that rides in the skies, Aravot, with his name of the Lord.
All right, so Steve, just another attempt to figure out what do these 4 things mean?
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to come with another attempt to understand what these 4 things are. Nancy, you want to read this one?
Another explanation. The fruit of a beautiful tree, Etz Hadar. This is referring to our father Abraham, who the Holy One, blessed be he, graced Hitter with a good old age, as it is stated. And Abraham was old, had come along in days, and it is written, and you shall grace the old. The branches of a date palm. This is referring to Yitzhak, who was bound kafut, which is spelled with the same letters as kapot,
Kapot.
and tied up on top of the altar. and a branch of a braided tree, a myrtle. This is referring to Yaakov. Just like this myrtle bustles with leaves, so too was Yaakov bustling with children, and brook willows. This is referring to Joseph. Just like this willow gets withered before these three other species, so did Joseph die before his brothers. Another explanation, the fruit of a beautiful tree at Sadar. This is referring to Sarah, who the Holy One, blessed be he graced her with good old age, as it is stated. And Avram and Sarah were old.
So by the way, Carol, so Carol, I know you're feeling great. Like, oh, the rabbis finally, and Anita, finally acknowledge women, which is really beautiful. So keep going, Nancy.
The branches of a date palm. This is referring to Rivka. Just like this date palm, it has food and it has thorns. So too, Rivka brought up a righteous one and an evildoer. And the branch of a braided tree, a myrtle. This is referring to Leah. Just like this myrtle bustles with leaves, so too was Leah bustling with children. And brook willows. This is referring to Rachel. Just like this willow gets withered before these three other species, so did Rachel die before her sister.
All right, so you can see they're again another attempt to figure out what do these four represent, and more this time they come up with they're our ancestors, whether the patriarchs, the matriarchs. So they're right more easy. They're really trying to figure out what is this? What does this mean to us? I'm going to skip the next one. It represents different institutions that the Jewish people had, from judges to the Great Sanhedrin, more like they really go here. But here's an interesting one. Right, this one comes from the Talmud itself, and this one I think you're going to find very, very interesting. All right, Jeff, will you read for us, please?
Sure. Non-essential aspects of a mitzvah avert calamity, as waving is a non-essential aspect of a mitzvah. Since even if one failed to wave the loaves, he fulfilled his obligation, and nevertheless, it halts harmful winds and dews.
All right, so here I want you to understand, if something you're doing which is different than just the mitzvah, like taking a lulav, the mitzvah is really taking the lulav and etrog and bringing them together, Jeff, right? That's all it is.
Yeah.
But we have this waving thing. The waving must mean something. And what they're saying it is about averting calamity. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit moment. And so what does it say here? What does it halt, Jeff?
And Rava said, and likewise, one should conduct...
No, right before it, I'm sorry. Nevertheless, it halts harmful
winds and dews.
So that's what the shaking is about. We're keeping away the harmful winds and the dew. We'll talk more about it. Keep going.
And Rava said, and likewise, one should conduct himself the same way with a lulav. That is, one should wave it to and fro and raise and lower it for the same reasons. When Rav Aha Bar Yaakov would move the lulav to and fro, he would say, this is an arrow in the eye of Satan, as despite his best efforts, the Jewish people continue to joyously fulfill mitzvot. The Gemara notes, this is not a proper manner of conduct, as it will induce Satan to come to incite him to sin. Gloating, due to his victory over the evil inclination, will lead Satan to redouble his efforts to corrupt him.
Beverly, a little crazy?
Yes, because I guess I missed something, because I didn't think that there was a belief in a Satan.
We do. Oh, no. We do believe in Satan.
Really?
Yep. We come straight from the book of Job. But Satan is different in Judaism than it is in Christianity. In Christianity, it is an opposing force to God. And that, the devil can, in fact, undermine God's will. In the Jewish tradition, Satan is simply one of God's angels. And the job of Satan is to challenge us, to test us. But yeah, no, there are many people who have a misconception about that, Beverly. We absolutely, part of our tradition, believes in Satan.
So there are more than one Satan. Could be
No,
any.
there's one angel Satan in the Jewish tradition.
Oh.
But this is about keeping them away. And so, and by the way, have you ever seen different ways of people shaking a lulav and etrog? Any of you? There's some way like the way that we tend to do it is like this, right?
Yeah.
Shaking it like this, right? How many times do you shake it, by the way, George?
I don't know, so 3 times each.
Three times in each direction, correct?
Well, we may see different things because a lot of people don't know, how to do it.
Okay,
So
no, but
we may
if
see a lot
you
of
don't,
differences,
but George, if you do it the correct way, it's usually 3 shakes in each direction.
Yeah.
By the way, I've been to places like Chabad, other places where they'll actually, it's almost like a spear, like in the Talmud.
Oh, yeah?
2, 3, like that.
Oh.
They'll do it like 1, 2, 3, like that. And almost like, and it comes from this tradition about spearing. 3 times, by the way, is always a prophylactic in terms of against evil. By the way, when you say Kenahora, right? How many times are you supposed to spit?
3.
Exactly, 3 times. 3 is an important number in our tradition and includes, I know Kathleen's laughing, right? But that's right. If you don't do it 3 times, then it's no good. And by the way, why are you spitting? Because water keeps evil spirits away. And the 3 times, no, these are all part of the tradition. But here, coming back, is about protection. So, Jeff, it's very possible that this is a symbol of protection. Where does it all come from? Its origins, Mort? I believe that this is the original, if you will, dance of good harvest and bountiful harvest. Why? Because each of these, and this has been, I forget who originally suggested this, that each of these 4 species requires a different amount of water. If you think about it, which one needs the most water to survive? The willow, Linda, right? The willow, it grows in the water, it grows in the brook.
Yeah.
Which one requires the least amount of water? The palm tree, Bob. Exactly. The palm tree requires the least amount of water. And then the myrtle and etrog are sort of in between. So why are these 4 more taken together? I believe they're intentional. That in essence, it's asking God to give us just the right amount of rain and wind for each of those different types of products. Now that makes sense, right? That you bring it together and you're worshiping God in this very ancient way, because by the way, we're learning this now. Too much water at one time can destroy crops. Not enough will destroy them as well, Steve. So we're really, Steve, the way I look at this is, please God, give us just the right amount of rain where we need it, and where we don't need too much, please don't give us too much there. More.
Yes, so the holiday corresponds to what in farming? What's the relationship?
It's the fall harvest. Absolutely. So if you follow the prevailing theory is that the Jewish holidays of the Bible all began more as agricultural celebrations. The 3 festivals, certainly. Sukkot, which is the fall harvest. By the way, more in that case, the sukkah we build is the booth that they would build out in the fields to stay there in this more intensive period of harvesting. And then in the springtime, Mort, from Passover to Shavuot, was the germination of the 5 major grains: wheat, rye, spelt, barley, and oats. And that was the harvest time for them. So it's clearly they began as agricultural and then have more historical and ethical reasons. So thank you for clarifying. We've got to come up. There's one explanation here. There's a couple that are written. Let's see what they say in this source. This is by, this will be important to understand. Rav Meir Spiegelman is a rabbi in the territories, in the Etzion block, which is a religious block. And you can imagine for that group that live there, you're going to hear language Judea, meaning that is Israel. Not that it is a territory or a disputed territory or an occupied territory. No, that is right where he is absolutely Israel. let's go on. Who hasn't read that would like to read? Anybody that'd like to that hasn't? Rob, please. Thank you.
The four species we take on Sukkot symbolize four different forms in which water appears in the world. The aravot, or brook willows, symbolize the water in brooks and streams. The lulav is taken from the palm tree, which grows near fountains of water. The etrog, as Chazal described, grows on any water, even through irrigation, and does not depend on proximity to a natural water source. Finally, the hadassim depend entirely on rainwater.
Right. So his is a little bit different, Robert, than mine. Right. He's talking about they're actually they're watered.
Oops, you froze.
Maybe correct. Go ahead.
In Eretz Yisrael, water serves a dual purpose. Beyond its standard function as a liquid, critical for the existence of all living things, it also symbolizes God's close supervision over the land of Israel. For the land that you are about to enter and possess is not like the land of Egypt from which you have come, where you sow your seed and water it by your foot, like a vegetable garden. But the land you are about to cross into and possess is a land of hills and valleys. It drinks water from the rain of the heavens. It is a land which your Lord our God looks after, on which the Lord your God always keep his eye from the year's beginning to year's end. The festival of Sukkot relates to the Almighty's providence over Am Yisrael when they left Egypt and entered the land. We therefore celebrate this festival by taking the four species which symbolize divine providence as manifest through water.
All right. So again, it's related more to water needs, and Israel certainly, which has those needs, of course. If you don't know, on Shmini Atzeret, we have a prayer for rain. We have a prayer for dew. And we begin to pray for the minimal, I'm sorry, I was right. It's for rain. It's in Passover, we have dew. And which we pray, we're getting into now the season of rain, and we begin, and that's when we offer more. We have a prayer for rain. So it's an interesting part of the history. Let's go one more. This is from Rabbi Alan Lucas, who I know from who's a conservative rabbi. Linda, since you're on open, why don't you read?
In some ways, the mitzvah of the lulav and etrog presents a bit of challenge to moderns accustomed to rituals that are transparent in their meaning and easily decipherable. Still, one of the dangers of contemporary Judaism is precisely that we have become overly cerebral in our approach to religion. After the intense high holiday period of prayer and introspective thought, Sukkot appeals to our senses. We build the sukkah with our hands, and we smell the four species and shake them back and forth as a sign of our exuberant sense of thanksgiving to God for all that we have in this world. Judaism makes demands both on the intellect and the spirit, both on the brain and on the heart, and Sukkot is a vibrant reminder of this lesson.
And it's a beautiful idea. And it's been said, Linda, that you, as suggested here, we're in such a period of intensive individual introspection of Yom Kippur that Sukkot is designed to take us out into the world. And by the way, it becomes a joyous celebration. If you don't know, there's some great sources on this that Sukkot was probably the most joyous celebration in temple times.
Yeah.
They would actually have performers and jugglers. There was a special prayer for rain that took place, Simchat Beit HaShoevah. And there's a quote that says, if you haven't
Frozen.
And if you really want to know what joy and celebration is about, it's about the Simchat Beit HaShoevah of Sukkot. So it is supposed to be the most joyous of all holidays. Any final questions about the holiday? No, I want to wish all of you, Rob.
I just want to say, when all of this discussion reminds me of the Peggy Lee song, "Is That All There Is?" where we talk about, we talk about, again, as Ecclesiastes says, all the service, and says, let's break out the booze and have a ball. That's really what this seems to be telling us.
There's an idea that it's a primal release. After all that introspection and nervousness and judgment and everything, correct, that we are just going out into nature, going out into the world, and we're going to release and celebrate. So it's a wonderful way of looking at it. I think tradition has it. Anyway, I wish all of you a Chag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom. I hope you have a chance to celebrate Sukkot. Maybe you'll come to the Sukkot celebration that we're all having together. I hope if you haven't yet registered for it, that you can come to that. And so many things happening. And I hope to see you around, okay?
Okay.
Be well, everybody. Chag Sameach. Be well. Bye.